May 14, 2025 marks 77 years since the establishment of the State of Israel in the beloved land of Palestine. There is an obsession with the Jews. Their state will not complete 80 years, meaning that some Jews will live in it for less than 3 years, and this is a declared matter. This obsession is declared and there is no confusion in it. I mean, secret wheels or unannounced discussions, no. Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of the Jews. He wrote an article in the year 2022-3 in the famous Hebrew newspaper Yediot Ahronot, in which he expressed his fears of the imminent demise of the state before the year 2028, meaning not yet, meaning they will not turn 80 years old in 2020 as well, through the researchers Meir bin Shaher and Auz Dayan al-Etnin in an article. In the famous Hebrew newspaper Haaretz, they expressed their concern that Israel's entry into the 8th decade means the link ends. These concerns are not based on prophecy in the Torah or the Talmud, but based on a reading of Jewish history. The Jews have two very large states in their history which continued strong for a period of time. This period was 80 years or nearly 80 years, the first period or the first state, the state of David, peace be upon him, and his son Solomon, peace be upon him. Of course, the Jews do not recognize prophecy. David and Solomon are kings, not prophets. This state lasted from the year 1010 BC to the year 930 BC, meaning exactly 80 years. And after that, the state collapsed and half fell apart. Half of Israel, which is the kingdom of Israel, and the second half is the kingdom of the Jews. The kingdom of Israel lived 209 years, and the kingdom of Judah lived 345 years. But in the case of weakness of the power was in the time of David and Solomon, peace be upon them. This first state, the state of Solomon, and before him David, peace be upon them. The second state is the Maccabean state or the Hashemite state. This is a late state after the Babylonian captivity. This state lived from the year 143 BC to the year 67 BC, which means 76 years, and did not complete 80 years. When 76 years passed, I put it very dispersed and civil wars broke out in it. I stayed weak for 40 years, and after that it completely collapsed and disappeared. This is why they have an obsession that we will not complete 80 years. The first and second times we reached 8,076 years, and after that the country doubled very significantly. We have observations on this observation from the Jews, or this obsession among the Jews. Several important observations that we put side by side. We may continue to separate them in detail in future episodes. First, the number 80, as we said here, is not a prophecy. This is the historical reading. If possible, it will not remain 80 exactly. It will remain 70. It will remain about 90, the 80, so that we are no longer waiting for the year 2028, specifically the 80th anniversary. 1948. No, it can be more than that. It can be less than that. This number is a number that means from historical reading, a number of 2. A very important point is that after 80 years, the state may weaken and may disappear. I mean, the state may disappear. There is no state, but it may exist, but it is weak. As we talked about the state of Solomon, peace be upon him, when it fell apart. The state emerged from the two kingdoms of Israel and Judah, countries that have not disappeared over time. No, this one prefers to complete 2 years and more, 209 years, and the other prefers to complete 345 years. But they have no effect on the surroundings around them. A state living in a small place that has no effect on the neighboring power, but it exists. This is a possibility, and it is a possibility that it will disappear completely. The state means, as happened in Bani al-Nazir, Bani al-Gregida, and Bani al-Kinka. The messenger drove them out of the city. They no longer exist. So this is a possibility. This is a possibility. The third thing is that the story of the 80s is not specific to the Jews alone. This is general for all nations. This means that most nations live for the ruling family or the ruling regime, whatever its nature, to live for 80 years or about 80 years. 79, 90. Why is this? Because there is a generation that establishes the state, and C remains for him. This generation means a great protector in establishment and strength. Then there is a generation that preserves and expands this establishment, and then there is a generation that signs it. This last generation is the generation that saw a great king. He was fascinated by this great king, and there was a dispute and struggle over this king. So the state fell either at the end of the second generation or at the beginning of the third generation, meaning that it completed approximately 80 years or more. Or at least the fourth point is that this fall will not happen. The state falls after 80 years, either in favor of another family with the same faith, the same orientation, and the same thought, or to a limit. Tani pure, a different college. I mean, who? From form to form, its various faculties. I mean, for example, we have things similar to this matter. What happened with the Umayyad state? The Umayyad state fell after 92 years, close to 80. What does it mean now after that? The Abbasid state, the same Islamic faith and the Islamic nation ruled by the same Muslim people, but another dynasty M, with another idea in management or leadership, but it is also from the same doctrine. Abbasid state remains strong for 100 years. He was also about 80 years old, meaning a strong 100 years old, and then the Turks took a course to lead the Abbasid state, and then the Buyids took a course to lead the Abbasid state, and then the Salajiks took a course to lead the Abbasid state, and the Abbasid man was the second and last cycle. Each cycle of the state was about 80 years old, all of them in the end. An Islamic trend or an Islamic faith with a slight difference in the issue of the Al-Buwayyids were Shiites. But in the latter, it is a direction, one nation. And everyone has a cycle of Hawalin number 80 in Andalusia. If we see it, we will find the Umayyads who created the Umayyad Emirate, then the Umayyad Caliphate. After that came the kings of the sects. After that the Almoravids, then the Almohads, then Granada. At each stage of the countries you will find livestock of Hawalin number 80, or maybe Tamantin 80 and 80, but two different systems in the same dynasty or different dynasty. Count this for all the Ayyubids. 1079 years, meaning next to the 80. Before them, the Zenkids number. From that, it is a little less than that, even with the different countries of the world. Communism was established in Russia in 1917, and the Soviet Union came into being in 1922 and in 1991, meaning it brought something, and 70 years ago when the state appeared, the European occupations of the entire Islamic world were about 80. Almost means that Egypt occupied something for 70 years, Tunisia is Syrian, and you will find it as if they had taken 2 or 3 generations of European military power or hegemony over a country. Spain occupied Portugal for 80 years, the same idea. When America arose, it arose in the year 1776. In the year 1861, the Civil War broke out. What does it mean? Supplement 85 years, and then after that the sense of civil war, and they stayed for a while in the civil war, and after that they returned today for another session, and so on. This remains a general matter for all nations, as we said. The 5 important point is that this is not an absolute rule. I mean, countries are possible. 150 years, 2 years dead or more, meaning like the Ottoman Empire, 600 years in countries that lived, meaning periods of several centuries, or life 20, 30 years and end. You do not have to complete this exercise. This is not an absolute rule. These are not prophecies, but this is what prevails in the movement of history. The 6th point is very, very important. There are signs that say that Israel will actually not complete 80 years or will remain about 80 years old. The signs may surprise people now because they have power. And spread the armies of the Israelis in different places, fighting on such and such a front, and there are stages of arrogance and arrogance which are clear. I say on the contrary, when there are stages of arrogance and arrogance which are clear, these remain signs of Korah.